What is up, everybody? Bills Mafia, the wait is almost over. We are about 48 hours from Bills versus Chiefs, the regular season edition. I know we are used to these games happening in the postseason, but this could be a preview of what's to come in January if the Bills and Chiefs do meet up. And this is the preview show. We've offered two shows this week. I hope you've been able to check them out. Ryan and I talked about a bunch of different storylines on Wednesday. I had Ariel Hawani on the show yesterday, and now we welcome in from Arrowhead Pride, Pete Sweeney. What's up, Pete? How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to do it. I joked with you on Twitter. I used to get quizzed on Syracuse.com when I was an Orange grad student. So happy to always chip in where I can.
That's awesome. We're excited to talk about this game. And as always, we're excited about the latest going on at Topps Markets. Right now, enter for a chance to win $1 million. Each week, Kings Hawaiian is pitting two city sliders against each other in the ultimate showdown, and you get to help decide the winner. Vote weekly for your favorite regional slider for a chance to win all season long and earn entries toward the $1 million prize. Explore the interactive stadium to play games, get recipes, share photos, and more. Visit topsmarkets.com/redzone to enter. All right, Pete, some injury news coming out of Kansas City today. Seems like the Chiefs are going to be down a couple cornerbacks. What's the situation going on back there for the Chiefs?
Yeah, the Chiefs definitely have injury issues in the defensive back room, and a little bit of a surprise today because I think all of us that are on the beat, we were thinking that Trent McDuffie, the first-round pick, was going to be back for this game. And then when we spoke to Chiefs head coach Andy Reid, he said probably going to be another week, which usually equates it that they're not going to take him off injured reserve. So with Rashad Fenton out, who had been starting, not necessarily playing particularly well, but he had been starting, he's out this week with a hamstring issue. So now the Chiefs, against this high-powered Buffalo Bills offense with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, will be starting L'Jarius Sneed in the slot, and I'm talking about the nickel here, L'Jarius Sneed in the slot, the seventh rounder, Jalen Watson, who actually has been pretty good.
Do we lose Pete?
I think so. I think he froze up on us there.
Oh, he froze up on us. While we wait for him. Oh, there we go.
Did I get cut out?
Yeah, cut out
for a second.
You're back.
So they're turning to Joshua Williams, and he will be getting the start, the first start of his career. He played 15 snaps week one, has only played special teams, and then last week he had to come in when Fenton was out. And if you guys watched that game, it was for the play in which Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow crashed into each other. Williams was on Adams on that play. And that's it. 17 defensive snaps in his career for the biggest game of the season. We talked to him in the locker room. He seems pretty confident, but this is certainly a big spot for him and definitely a concern for Chiefs fans.
You know, you just mentioned it. I was just going to bring up your article that you talked about here with Williams. What did he say about this moment and this opportunity?
Well, we all felt a little silly when we were in the locker room with him because he's like, yeah, the Chiefs told me, the coaching staff told me earlier in the week, and we're like, man, we really thought McDuffie would be back, but just, not ready yet. And I think they're being careful with it because he's important for the Chiefs' chances to win the Super Bowl this season. In talking with him, he said he was confident. He's been working all week. He felt pretty good. He's excited for the opportunity. It was actually tough for him when McDuffie went down, and then you have a seventh rounder get his spot. He was taken in the fourth round. You would have thought it might have been him initially week one, and they go to the seventh rounder. The right call because Watson was the guy who ran that 99-yard interception return touchdown against the Chargers to win that game. And so, it's excitement, and he's been turning to Watson and Sneed all week to make sure that he has the defensive plays down. And look, sometimes, and we've seen it all across the NFL, you got to get thrown into the fire to see if these guys can play. And man, there's little other challenges, more challenging teams to come in than certainly Josh Allen in this receiving core. So we're going to see really fast if Joshua Williams can play. I anticipate Allen is going to be picking on number 23 early.
I want to get into a little bit more about this Chiefs defense because there's a lot of really marquee players on it, especially in the front seven. But I want to ask about the vibe in Kansas City right now. Like we know we have a good like kind of finger on the pulse of Bills Mafia and how they're kind of approaching this game as, you know, this crazy kind of flip, which being like a favorite on the road against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's kind of wild, but it's been leading up to this point. There's a lot of belief in this team and what they built and adding Von Miller from the Kansas City side of things. How are fans approaching this? Is there a little bit of a different vibe around it than in years past where they've kind of been that big brother and it feels like that? Or is it still kind of status quo? The expectation is still to have success on Sunday.
You know, and I've talked about this a lot this week in Kansas City. Like, this game cannot be bigger for the Chiefs. Like, there's no way that the Chiefs are going into this one, you know, thinking we need to win as badly as Buffalo, I believe, wants to win this game, just stemming from last year. And I think the reality around town is like, they know it's a big game, but it's just the Bills are not a hill that the Chiefs necessarily have to climb. And so I think that's reality. And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing Buffalo, who's among the elite in the AFC, even favored in this game. I not that, like, you know, wanting it more is necessarily always going to define who wins a football game. But I just think that this game is always going to be more important to Buffalo, just to prove it to themselves, in a sense. And I think Kansas Cityans are excited. And it's not really one of these things where it's to the point of like, we are looking forward to this game so much. I think there is like a level of annoyance with Chiefs fans that Buffalo, who hasn't been able to beat them in the playoffs, is regarded as this easy pick to win the Super Bowl. So maybe less excitement and more annoyance, and kind of like they want to see Kansas City win in more of a "we told you so" type of way, as opposed to, again, this hill that we have to climb, biggest game of the year by.
You know, Pete, you mentioned the fact that the Bills are going into this game as the favorites. One, has that been a talking point in the locker room this week among the players? Is it something that maybe even if they haven't talked about, do you think maybe this is some kind of like bulletin board material, even though it didn't come from the Bills, it's the odds makers. Yeah. These guys are coming into our house and they're the favorites.
Dave Skretta of the Associated Press point blank asked Patrick Mahomes, you know, how does it feel to be an underdog? And his words back were, "It is what it is." Which I'll tell you, in covering Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is kind of like false speak in a way. These guys pay attention. Patrick Mahomes counts to 10 against Mitch Trubisky because the Bears decided to pick Trubisky, and he fell to 10. When he's playing Lamar Jackson, he counts to 4. With the NFL top 100. He yells once they're between the white lines. He yells at teams like the Arizona Cardinals. We saw him get into a confrontation with Max Crosby last week. This offensive line knew that Shaq Barrett was calling them weak, and they said they're not really talking about it. They knew about it. Patrick Mahomes knows that he's an underdog going in on Sunday, and this is the type of guy where you don't want to provide him any extra motivation. So I would tell you, he didn't really comment about it, which is to be expected, but I'm telling you that he knows, and it will be motivating for him.
You know, in years past, to me, we had this conversation on Wednesday, the number one priority for the Bills, because on offense with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, like, you knew you were in for a long day. But on the defensive side of the ball, it's been kind of like one player that I feel like, right or wrong, you kind of focus in on in Chris Jones, because he could just be such a game wrecker. How has he played this season? And how is that defensive line, that front, how have they performed the first 5 weeks?
The defense has really been a bright spot for the Chiefs. They struggled a little bit at the beginning of last game, but largely through the 5 weeks, it's been the most consistent unit, which is weird to say when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and this offense. Chris Jones has had a really nice season, and I feel like he's finding a way to pressure quarterbacks, but it's kind of been overshadowed by these two moments where he cost the Chiefs the game after the ref decided to throw the unnecessary unnecessary conduct flag against the Indianapolis Colts just for chatter. And then last game, he was in the spotlight once again when he got a roughing the passer call that everyone had a problem with, consensus, which I mean, these days in the world, we can't agree on anything. I think everyone was upset that Chris Jones was thrown, that flag. But he's been a dominating force, and the defensive line has been better than we thought it would be. And that's stemming from George Karlaftis and just how good he has looked. Only 1 sack, but his motor was sold to the Chiefs by Purdue, and it has translated to the NFL right away, which we weren't sure because he was a late pick in the first round. Dunlap has been good. And an underrated player the Chiefs actually get back this week, besides Harrison Butker, is Mike Dana. Mike Dana has had a nice season as well. And so you have Frank Clark, even though he has an illness, he'll be playing in this game. And the front seven is going to be key. And that was a point where I talked to Steve Spagnuolo regarding how to defend Josh Allen. And he is really emphasizing getting pressure on him with that front four, that front seven, knowing full well that Allen can extend plays and throw against what is going to be these really young cornerbacks. And so to me, I think the defense should have confidence going into this game. A little bit of a slip up with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, but I think they'll be refocused and have a good plan for Allen, and we'll see if they can play well. I think the Bills are a team where they're going to get you a few times, but I think the key for the Chiefs defense this week is going to be having that short memory and being able to just get up, dust yourself off, and try to succeed on the next play.
Yeah, Pete, flipping it over to the other side, then the offensive line. What's the scouting report on that unit this year? We saw some struggles early in the game against the Raiders. You mentioned it. The Raiders had some success getting after Mahomes early in that game, and then they kind of settled in. Obviously, the Bills made a big splash this offseason, signing Von Miller. They've seen Greg Rousseau make some impressive gains this season, and that we know their defensive tackle position is deep. So what should they be bracing for with this Chiefs offensive line?
The Chiefs offensive line is made up of an all-pro interior when you talk about Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Trey Smith didn't play last game, which I think was part of the problem with Max Crosby getting the Chiefs early. The tackles are the weak point of this unit. Orlando Brown largely plays well, but there are some times when he has slow starts that he has to kind of settle in. Andrew Wiley probably is the weakest player on what is a pretty, I think, talented offensive line. The weird part about the offensive line that I have found is they didn't play well against the Indianapolis Colts. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. They needed to be challenged by Andy Reid to play better against Tampa Bay. I think Shaq Barrett running his mouth and calling them similar to the Super Bowl offensive line that just got destroyed really ticked them off. And they played well against Tampa Bay. But then, again, not really having a good game at the beginning against the Las Vegas Raiders. Pat Mahomes said that he had to challenge the O-line again. Orlando Brown had to turn to them and say, look, we need to play better in this game. And that was a talking point and a question that I had for a couple people this week. It's like, look, if you start slow against the Buffalo Bills, they might be up 17-0 in the blink of an eye. And I think the Chiefs realize that. I think they understand that they got to play really good football in the trenches for all four quarters. And it's just been wondering why it's taken a little bit for them to get kickstarted here. But I think they have heard the message, and we'll see if they play better. But if there are weak points of it would be at left tackle and right tackle. And I'm interested in seeing how the Bills do attack Andrew Wiley and Orlando Brown, because I think certainly it looks like early on, at least they should have an advantage in the first quarter.
All right, Pete, we're going to get you out of here. But before we do, give us your prediction. How do you see this one going?
Before the defensive back news today, I was thinking that it would be the Chiefs in maybe more of a defensive struggle, like a 24-21 win. I think for the first time, maybe since, I don't know, 17 or 18, I might be picking against the Chiefs this week. I think this change of the guard at defensive back is very concerning, and not that I don't believe in Joshua Williams, but this is his first start, and he was basically the Chiefs' fifth choice as a cornerback and passed up by a seventh rounder. And I think Josh Allen is just playing at an MVP level. So I guess I'm going to pick against the Chiefs, maybe 30-24 Buffalo. I just feel like with all these injuries and with the way that the Bills looked against the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's just hard for me to fathom the Chiefs being able to pull out this win. I think they're going to need all their players.
Let everybody know where they can get you real quick.
Yep, PG Sweeney on Twitter. And if you want to read some of the stuff that we've been covering this week on the Chiefs side, you can go to arrowheadpride.com.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Pete. We appreciate
Pete.
you, man.
Thank you, guys.
All right, take care. All right, that was Pete Sweeney from Arrowhead Pride. Great quick hit to get us started here. We got a lot still to get into Ryan Talbot. We have an update on where the Bills are at headed into this game, and it is a pretty good update. Speaking of a good update, the Tailgate and Go kitchen, Ryan Talbot. We've been talking about this for weeks. Portable outdoor kitchen with a dry box made for any outdoor cooking setting. You can set it up in the backyard, the backwoods, stadium parking lot in seconds. It comes with a built-in cutting board, paper towel holder, bottle opener, spice rack, food divider compartment, storage net and lid, and a knife magnet. It's our favorite time of the year at Tops. It's tailgate season, and you can win the ultimate tailgate accessory from Tops just by purchasing your favorite brands that you already love now through October 29th. Every time you use your Tops Bonus Plus card to purchase participating brands like Pepsi, Campbell's, Smithfield, and so many more, you're automatically entered for a chance to win it. Complete details, topsmarkets.com/redzone. So Ryan Talbot, the Bills are the healthiest they've been in a long time.
Yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy. You froze up for there for a second, so I didn't know. I thought I lost you for a second, but we're good. Yeah. It looks like Jordan Phillips is he's on the fence in terms of whether or not he's going to play in this game. Obviously, re-aggravated the hamstring against Pittsburgh, but everyone else, was given a no designation pretty much. So really encouraging to see. But Matt, one reason I like when we bring on these guests from other cities is the similarities between these two teams. Young secondary, both teams have it. Both teams actually passed up a higher draft pick to play a late day 3 pick and start one. We had Benford here in Buffalo over Elam early in the year, and they went with a 7th round pick over a 4th round pick. Not quite the same, but the strength of the defense has been the front 7 for the Chiefs. It's been the defensive line and the linebackers for the Bills too to help with that back end. So there's a lot of similarities between these two teams. But the one big difference, you mentioned it, the Bills are much healthier going into this game where it matters, and that's on the back end.
Not having Jordan Phillips in this game, it's, you'd love to have him healthy, but as a questionable, we'll see how that plays out. The more important two pieces, like if you were power ranking, like at the 3 levels of the defense, Jordan Poyer, Tremaine Edmonds, and Jordan Phillips, I have Jordan Poyer at the top of that power rankings list. Like to have him available in this game, his experience, his reps against this Kansas City Chiefs offense, they're going to be, invaluable in this game to not only to have that piece back there. Because listen, most of these battles, these wars have been with Tre'Davious White back there, Levi Wallace, who's no longer in the mix, Micah Hyde, who's out for the season. So young players like Damar Hamlin and Christian Benford, if he's back, no designation this week, maybe he makes his return. Kyer Elam, however you want to kind of play this out. I actually think this could be a spot for Benford. If you like him more as a physical tackler, if everything's okay with that hand, maybe you give him a little bit more of an opportunity in this game. Have him maybe go 60-40 with Kyer Elam. Although I will say Elam's tackling has been fine. I think they've liked a lot of parts of that part of his game. But yeah, you have a lot of different options. But to me, Poyer was the most important piece of all that.
Yeah, it's huge for the back end of this defense. And, we were singing praises for Damar Hamlin and how well he's played. So now you match him up with Poyer at safety. We know the cornerback position is going to have a challenge against Patrick Mahomes specifically. Dane Jackson, though, is playing solid football. You mentioned Elam. He has been a great tackler. That was one of his big weaknesses coming out. And then Benford. The only question I have about Benford, even without any injury designation, is how much is that club going to hamper his play in terms of playing physical, in terms of possibly being able to make a play on a ball? Because when you really only have one good hand, you're probably not going to intercept anything. And I really think, though, whoever the cornerback is playing opposite Dane Jackson really is going to get picked on a lot, whether it's Benford because of that injury or Elam based on what happened in that Steelers game where he gave up 10 receptions for over 100 yards.
So there's a couple parts of this. Getting picked on a lot is fine. I think if you can just make sure that you're aware of where Travis Kelce is on the field and you hope that he's not the one doing the picking, because, guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Valdez-Scantling, I mean, they're going to make plays, but I don't necessarily fear them in the same ways that you fear Kelce going off. Great question by Hefe in the chat. Who is covering Kelce? Well, you're probably going to see a lot of Matt Milano. I think it's going to be a combination approach. Matt Milano and Taron Johnson. Right now, Matt Milano, I put this tweet out here earlier today. I was going to have it up, but I'm sleeping at the wheel here, Ryan Talbot, as usual. I put out a tweet earlier today. Matt Milano's allowing, when targeted this year, 57.3 passer rating against. That ranks 20th in the NFL among players with 150 coverage snaps or more. So when you're talking, and that includes cornerback, safeties, everything. He has been one of the best coverage players in the NFL, and that has led to the success that the Bills have had against the tight end position. We're talking about no tight end has scored a touchdown against the Bills this year. And after giving up 3 for 39 or 5 for 39 to Tyler Higbee in week 1, the next 4 games, the Bills allowed to the tight end position 6 catches for 52 yards. Unbelievable production this year so far against tight ends.
Yeah, and I like both players in that scenario. Taron Johnson's one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the league. He can cover well against tight ends. He had a few penalties a few weeks ago, obviously, but he is still one of the best in the game. But then Milano is that physical player. He can cover. He has great speed, great attributes. So while Kelsey's going to get his fair share of catches and opportunities, the Bills, I think they're going to really be focused in and dialed in on slowing him down specifically in the passing game and daring those wide receivers to beat them on Sunday.
Speaking of the defense, before we kind of flip things over, and we're going to get into our keys to the game, our value keys to the games, if you will, and our predictions here in a moment. But I was messing around on Pro Football Focus earlier today. I put out some of those coverage stats, but then I was looking at the pass rushers, and I kind of wanted to just check to see where Von Miller checked in on the pass rush win rate that the PFF does. And it depends on who you go through. Like ESPN has a different metric. I think they all individually look at each rep and then rank them. And I was surprised to see, Ryan, Von Miller on PFF, based on their pass rush win rate, is down to number 12. Guess who's number 2 in the NFL in pass rush win rate, according to PFF?
Who's that?
Greg Rousseau, 25%, right behind Nick Bosa. And listen, he's got 4 sacks. I think you can make the argument that a lot of his success comes from scheme and the way that they rush as a 4-man group. And that's all well and good, but the production is there. You're seeing a lot of good signs from that piece. And listen, Go back to last year's game, Ryan. Greg Rousseau was a difference maker, tackle for a loss, sack, interception. I mean, he was absolutely outstanding in that game last season. They're going to need him in this game again.
Big time. And before we went on live, you and I were talking about the Raiders game against the Chiefs, and you mentioned Max Crosby, the success he had, but then you mentioned he played 90% of the snaps in that game. Right. So by the end of the fourth quarter, even in the third quarter, he was probably gassed and pretty winded. The Bills aren't going to do that with Rousseau, with Von Miller. They're going to rotate their guys in. That means Boogie Basham will get his opportunities. Epinesa will get his opportunities. Possibly Shaq Lawson if they go with all 5 of their guys there at D end. So they're going to be fresh at the end of the game. And Greg Rousseau, like you mentioned it there, he has had an outstanding season. It's flown under the radar because of how good some of these other players in this defense have been. Jordan Poyer, every game he's played, he's had an interception. Matt Milano playing at an all-pro level. The defensive line as a collection, shutting down run defense after run defense, or running team, I should say. They've been great in run defense. So he's flown under the radar, but up until last week, he had at least half of a sack in every game this season, and he's still winning in terms of the pass rush win rate, like you mentioned.
So it's funny you mentioned Shaq Lawson. I was kind of making my way around the locker room today, asking a lot of guys about Von Miller's impact, because when I asked Sean McDermott about him this morning, he said something interesting. He basically alluded to the fact that it's not always about what Von Miller says. It's just more about the aura that he brings, like the confidence level, the cool nature, the calmness that he has in the building. So I asked Shaq Lawson, who goes back to the first iteration of this defense. When he was first here, he's obviously been gone for a couple of years. He has not played the Chiefs since 2017. And so I said, what's the biggest difference now, seeing what it looks like with these young guys and with Von? Check this out. I'm going to try to play this for you guys.
Obviously, you haven't been here the last couple of years, but you know this team as well as anybody. What's the biggest difference having him here now for you guys as a group?
Sure. Well, the biggest difference, man, you got a guy that can end the game at any time, or a guy to take over the game, And I think that's been a missing piece for the last couple years, like that last rush and things like that. And they got a guy that just can impact the game from start to finish.
What does he add in a week? Like Sean was saying, like, it's not always what he says, but it's just like the vibe that he kind of has.
Yeah. He always brings great energy, He always tells us to keep a positive attitude, don't speak bad energy. So when you hear those words from older guy that's won it, go and did all that, man, you take heed in that and want to listen and try to make your game better as that. So having him around, man, it's just like, he's a leader about how he speaks off the field, and not just how he plays, just off the field too.
So, really, strong words from Shaq Lawson. The impact that he's had in the building, you could see that from a vet that's been in a bunch of different locker rooms now over the last couple of years, has played a lot of years in this league. And it just changes. The dynamic changes when you have somebody that is proving it on the field, but then proving it in the locker room too, Ryan.
Yeah, and that's big because, you see players get big paydays and they might show up on the field, but maybe that locker room aspect's not there. But when you bring in someone like Von Miller and some of these players that the Bills bring in, year out, they also make sure that they're a good locker room fit. That speaks volumes to what Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott look for in the culture piece of this. And I'm really interested to see what they're going to do on Sunday in a matchup that America is going to be watching.
We're going to talk a little bit about our keys to the game, this offense as well, but I got a little special guest here. Mr. Bills fan all of a sudden. Can't get enough of the Bills. And his mom just took my daughter to dance class, so I told him he can come down and give his prediction. What do you think is going to happen when the Bills play the Chiefs on Sunday?
They're going to win.
Well, Matt, you're muted right now.
Hang on. Can you hear us now?
Yep.
All right, hang on. Don't touch the cord. You got us?
Yep.
All right, go ahead. Why are they going to win?
I think the Bills are going to win because they're really good.
Which players are really good?
Josh, Diggs. I don't know anybody else's name.
That's all right. Well, what's the final score going to be?
2,100 to.
All right, see you later.
5.
All right, see you later with all this stuff. Go play with your guns. All right, so yeah, he just wanted to give his official prediction. It's funny, Ryan, watching him kind of get into the game. It's a little bit different. Like, you get to watch the games with Owen most of the time. That's the weirdest thing. Like, I grew up watching Bills games with my father, and I never get to watch them with him. So my wife always kind of comes back, gives me the report, like, week by week, incrementally, he's kind of getting more understanding of it. That's awesome. It's cool. It's cool to see it, kind of like the eyes kind of getting wide open. But yeah, great stuff in the chat. He basically said Bills by $1 billion, right? There you go.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that is one of the benefits, is being able to watch the games with my kids, seeing them get more involved. They're not sitting there watching every moment of every game, but they know the players. They get excited when the team scores touchdowns. So it's one of the fun parts of the job for sure.
All right. Value Home Centers. Head over to their website right now. The weekly ad is up as always. They're bringing deals at you every week, from drills to paint supplies to grills, batteries. I even see on the cover of this week's ad. They got you hooked up. And if you join their text program by texting VALUE, VALU, to 80692, you start saving even more. You'll receive exclusive coupons, see the weekly deals, and so much more. Value Home Centers also brings you the keys to the game, Ryan Talbot. You go first.
It's simple for me, Matt. Last year, in the playoffs, they said they couldn't get after Patrick Mahomes. You enter Von Miller. You have Von Miller. You have Greg Rousseau. You have a much improved defensive tackle position. For the Bills to win this game, the defensive line has to disrupt Patrick Mahomes, make him uncomfortable, sack him, hit him, get your hands up, bat a few passes up into the air. Good things can happen. If they can do that, the Bills can go on the road in this game and pull one out and move on and move to 5-1 on the season.
If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Hit that like button and subscribe as well. I think anywhere you want to start on that pass rush and dealing with Patrick Mahomes works in this situation. But I'm going to go more in terms of operationally, right? Like, you're going to be on the road. You're going to be in this environment. I was outside as we were waiting to get kind of let in to go into the locker room. We were outside, so we could still hear them practicing at the outdoor facility. And they had the Arrowhead music blasting, the chant, and that the crowd's going to be going crazy. And so it's about what we saw them do down the stretch in Baltimore, when the execution was just so perfect in every facet of the game, from clock management to awareness to making plays when you needed to make them on both sides of the ball, complementary football. You have to be perfect operationally. We saw it in 13 seconds. This is the kind of team that can beat you. They're so good. And I'll add to that as well. You got to take one of the strengths of the Chiefs away from them. And what do they do better than almost anybody in the league, Ryan Talbot? 78% of the time they are scoring touchdowns when they get into the red zone. They get in the red zone a lot. And that's the only reason that number is as low as it is. But because of that, Patrick Mahomes' 15 touchdown passes, 13 of them have come from 10 yards and in. So once they get close to the goal line, they're putting it in. So as a defense, the Bills have to stand up. They like to take away explosive plays, and that style has worked, and that's what's bit them a couple times. But in addition, you got to hold up in the red zone, because if you let them march down, have these long drives, and then end drives with 6 points, it's going to be that back and forth slugfest, and you leave yourself open to what happened last year. And obviously, I don't think anybody's predicting the craziness of a fourth quarter that happens like that again, but you probably want to avoid it at all costs.
Absolutely. Don't get yourselves in a scenario where you're playing prevent, you mess up on the kickoff, all of that stuff. So the Bills certainly don't want to be there. I think they have a good advantage in this game based on the secondary issues that the Chiefs are facing right now. So let's see if the Bills can go out and execute on both sides of the ball when all is said and done.
In addition to the keys to the game, I want you to pick out one player, and I'm going to do the same. What is the one player that, if you're going to this game, and like not Josh Allen and Von Miller and Stephon Diggs, like those are obviously the guys that got to show up and make big plays in this game. But who do you think in this game you're kind of zeroing on, like this has to be this guy game where we're talking about him on the post game show?
Boy, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. And I'm not going to use Gabe Davis either, because I think Gabe Davis, after a 4-touchdown performance against Kansas City, he's an obvious choice too. I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir. I'm going to say that slot position. And I know Isaiah McKenzie's cleared concussion protocol. I know that he's going to get some opportunities, but Shakir can do a lot for this team. Return game, especially if you don't want to put McKenzie back there, if you're worried about him coming off a concussion. We saw a 34-yard kick return in that matchup. We saw someone that was comfortable getting open, making contested catches, running good routes. I think he could sneakily have a good game here on Sunday, Matt. What about you?
I'm going to go to Roger Saffold, and I think it's been kind of a slow grind to get to the point of the season where he's starting to, play at the level that I think some hoped. I think last game was maybe his best. He got a big job on Sunday, and we talked about this interior of this line, but also Deion Dawkins having a chance to play next to a Pro Bowl caliber player, and that left side of the line with Mitch Morse included is 3 guys that you can really count on. And they're going to, that's the matchup of the game. When you're talking about protecting Josh Allen, letting him kind of settle into the pocket and try to make some plays, Roger Saffold is going to have to hold up against one of the elite players in the league. And listen, they've done it. It's funny. I was listening to Sal Capaccio the other day. I can't remember what show he's on. He does so many on GR. Shout out to Sal, man. We got to get him on the show soon. Guy's always working. But he was talking about just the gauntlet the Bills have faced in terms of defensive tackles. You start with Aaron Donald, then you go to Jeffrey Simmons. You played this last week, Cam Hayward. I mean, everywhere you turn, it has been really, really good interior defensive linemen. And this is going to be another example of that this week. Chris Jones is as good as it is. And I asked quickly Roger Saffold, I'm going to put out the clip of it on Twitter probably later today, so look out for that, about what's the challenge of playing against them. And he's like, basically, he can make you look bad at any given time. And I feel like in these kinds of games against these kind of players, a lot of veterans like this, they tend to raise their games. And if he can raise his game and offer really solid play alongside Mitch Morse and Deion Dawkins, who have been through the wars against this Chiefs front before, that to me is kind of a sneaky key to the game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, we've talked all week about containing guys like Chris Jones in this offensive line and the task that they have ahead of them. If they can protect Josh Allen and give him the time to pick on that banged up secondary, there's no reason the Bills can't go out and have another outing where they score 30+ points.
I'm actually looking up because he actually referenced playing against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game back in 2019. Mm-hmm. And that was the Super Bowl year for the Chiefs. And so that was them at their peak when they were the toughest to deal with. And I'm actually looking at, I seem to remember thinking that Chris Jones looked really good in that game, but I want to bring up the stats to see if anything pops out. 2 tackles, 1 quarterback hit, no sacks for Chris Jones in that game a couple years ago. So yeah, to me, Roger Saffold, he's a very important piece in this game, as is Morrison, as is Dawkins, Ryan Bates on this other side when he ends up having to deal with them. But when the Bills have faltered a little bit offensively against this team, it's when they've let Jones wreck the game a little bit. So anyway, moving on to the prediction portion of the program. What do you got for us, Ryan Talbot?
Yeah, I was kind of just like Pete. I was ready early this week to say, they're going on the road. They're favored. I just feel like it's the perfect storm for the Chiefs to come in here and win this game. But with how the secondary is banged up in Kansas City, I have the Bills winning this game 35-24.
35-24. So I put in my pick every week. Our producer, Mike Courtney, who just celebrated a birthday a couple days ago. Happy birthday to Mike if he ends up seeing this. He would ask for that every Tuesday for our pick. So I got to kind of really make a pick. And then, sometimes I talk it through on here if maybe things have changed a little bit. And it's changed a little bit. Like at the beginning of the week, I had the Bills winning 41-31. And I'm sticking with that. But it's kind of like similar to a couple weeks ago where you could start to see like maybe this thing isn't as close as you think it's going to be going into it. I just think the Bills are so loose. They're so calm and cool. Like just Sean McDermott, watch both of his press conferences this week, Ryan. It's a complete flip. He seems so relaxed. Like he was talking in detail today about Josh Allen as a leader and his experience with Vaughn. I asked him about facing Andy Reid and how much that dynamic has changed over the years. And he said, he actually offered, which usually kind of gives you a couple platitudes and moves on. He said early on, it was about, trying to like impress your mentor a little bit, right? He didn't say that exactly, but that's kind of how I phrased the question. And he said, but it's changed over time because they've played so many games now. It's really just about the competitive piece now. He said, Andy wants to beat my tail and I want to beat his tail. So it's not so much about mentor and mentee as much as it is two of the best programs in the NFL right now, the Chiefs and the Bills. Quarterbacks dead in the middle of their prime. Josh Allen at kind of the beginning of his, and Patrick Mahomes at the beginning of his as well. I think these guys have potentially a 5 or 6 year window of their prime, maybe even more. And so this is what it's all about. It's the competition, and it's going to be fun to watch. I think the Bills have more paths to victories if they play the way that I think they're going to play. It's a big game. They've been there before. And that's another thing too. What sets up interesting about this, Ryan, is that if they win this game and they go on to win the number 1 seed and get the bye, and Kansas City actually ends up having to play in Buffalo after losing to the Bills in the regular season, the dynamic of that game completely changes. And I just think if both teams are healthy and all things being considered, I know you never want to rule out Patrick Mahomes, but it will feel like a little bit of a paradigm shift in the NFL if the Bills handle business in a big way this week and then host the AFC Championship game, if that's what it ends up being.
Sure, and I agree with that completely, but even building off of that point, I've had so many fans on social media, Shout fans, Bills fans, this week saying, oh, they're playing Kansas City again, and next year again. Why does it keep getting played in Kansas City? I actually think that's advantageous for the Bills. There's nothing that they can't be surprised come playoff time what it's going to be like atmosphere-wise because they already played there 2 years in the playoffs. Right. They've been playing there in the regular season. If anything, like you said, if the Bills host in the playoffs, host the Chiefs, that is, it's a whole new world for Kansas City and not the other way around. So the Bills, win or lose this game, if they meet up in the playoffs and it's at Arrowhead again, the Bills are going to be more than comfortable going in there, and they're going to be able to give it, their best shot. Realistically, Trey White will be back in the mix there after having multiple games under his belt in the regular season and playoffs, and they'll be even healthier than they are going into this game in an ideal world. So I don't mind the fact that once again the Bills find themselves in Kansas City because, listen, you want to be able to beat the best and even beat the best on the road because that's how you build that championship medal.
If you want the best, Tops is going to hook you up all weekend long. Get you set up for game day. Get your tailgate spread ready. If you're cooking out in the backyard, I mean, I think the weather is supposed to be decent in Buffalo on Sunday. I haven't looked too much at it, but whether or not, whatever you need, Tops has got you covered. Hot to go, fresh, large, and cheese and pepperoni pizza, $14. Perfect for game day or any day. It's the Tops Carryout Cafe is where you want to go. Jumbo chicken wings, 10 count, $14. The legendary breakfast pizza, good at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The largest, $20 pizza and taco logs, 6 count, $7.69. Baby back rib sections, $5.99 a pound. Subs, sandwiches, wraps, apps, sides, and so much more. Visit topsmarkets.com/redzone for the complete menu of ready-to-enjoy fan favorites. Oh, man, Ryan Talbot, my flight hits wheels up at noon tomorrow. We will be in Kansas City. I expect to have some great barbecue. and then cover a football game on Sunday. Don't miss the pregame show. We will be live at 11 on your CBS affiliate if you're in New York State. And then also you can watch the first half hour online. For Ryan Talbot, I am Matt Parrino. See you in a couple days, everybody. Enjoy your weekend.